Hey, we're here with another episode of Before You Bought. You know, it's me, your host, Jake Baldito, and today we're talking about Hellblade, Senua's Sacrifice. It's the latest from the folks that brought us the underrated Enslaved, Heavenly Sword, and the newest Devil May Cry DMC. Now, let's just get right to this. Just a heads up for you guys. This game is very much intended to be like a middle-of-the-road experience in terms of a quality, quantity, and price ratio. The game retails for $30 US on PS4 and Steam, and it's a fairly linear experience that'll take you like 7-ish hours, depending on how you play. Let me just get that out of the way. That right there is going to turn some people off. I get it. Some people don't like short games, and some people really want a game that they can play endlessly and only have it cost them $20. I don't really think that game exists unless it's an older game on a Steam sale, but that's just me. But what you get with Hellblade is a very well-crafted, fairly linear single-player experience that is story-heavy, and frankly, I'm all about it. I think it's really, really solid with some minor annoyances that I'll get to. So you play as this woman named Senua. She's a Celtic warrior who sets out to redeem the soul of her long-lost love. I'm not really gonna get too deep into the story and spoil anything, but the real star of the show here is the world she inhabits. It's like a really grim, dark, grimy, gross world with like short moments of beauty and nature here and there, all inspired by this hellish interpretation of elements of Norse mythology and a few other things thrown in, and it's good. It feels like part Thor with a bunch of God of War and tons of horror references thrown in for good measure. One of the more interesting aspects of the game is the fact that Senua is afflicted with an extreme case of psychosis. Many of the game's mechanics are worked around this, and most of it really pays off. Now, first off, listen, you have to play this game with headphones. Senua has voices in her head constantly talking to her, casting doubts, pushing her forward, providing backstory, and just kind of creeping her out and everything. The game actually uses 3D sound to make it feel like you have creepy voices in your head, and they're all recorded in high quality and almost always provide more context to what's going on around Senua and just her backstory in general in a really good and satisfying way. It's actually a lot like Galadriel's voice in the Lady of the Wood sequence from The Lord of the Rings, if you know what I'm talking about. It's very eerie and it sticks with you, and you should get used to it because it follows you around the whole game. Because the voices are also casting doubts on you, the player, you know, like you're asking yourself, did I go the right way? Am I going in circles? Am I solving this puzzle wrong? It really makes you anxious in a good way. Senua herself is just not in a good mental state at all, and it makes for some insanely surreal moments and some really dizzying puzzle and story sequences that kind of make you feel like you can't trust anything and you never really know what's real and what isn't. The game uses a lot of cool visual tricks and filters and effects and stuff to make things feel uneasy, and it usually works really well. The game does a good job at keeping you on your toes all the time. But speaking of being on your toes, occasionally you engage in combat with these creepy, hellish man creatures, and the combat is moment-to-moment satisfying, if a little light and leaving a bit to be desired. It has good feedback, and it's got light and heavy attacks and a guard break melee, but the block counters here feel immensely satisfying, and they look pretty cool when you pull them off. Not only that, you can also slow down time to your advantage temporarily. It's all pretty basic stuff, like I said, but it feels decent, and it can actually get pretty challenging, which is honestly what I really care about here. Enemy variety consistently changes, but it is still pretty slight, but boss battles are interesting, if not just all kind of devolving into slicing the heck out of everything. Like I keep trying to say, it's not bad, but it's definitely the least baked of all the aspects of the game. But combat is only roughly 20% of the whole experience. If you're looking for depth, you won't really find it with this, but you can still walk away from a fight at least feeling satisfied. But you gotta know that the game is about a lot more than just combat. It's a lot of walking around, looking, stopping to smell the roses, figuring things out, and listening to the story. But the most love-hate thing I have with the game is the puzzles. While there are moments of brilliant, simple, good stuff that gives me that aha moment that I really like, it makes me feel like I actually figured something out and I'm smart, the game also grinds to a freaking halt when it sends you looking for things in the specific shape of magic runes. You need to open the door. It's kind of like those line of sight puzzles where you have to line up objects to make a certain shape in front of you. The story aspect behind it is Senua's extremely heightened level of focus allows her to see patterns in things that others don't. But I just found these types of visual puzzles annoying and grating after a while, and it's not even really just Hellblade, it's most games that have this stuff. Obviously, that's personal preference, but it killed the pacing and the vibe that I was really into. But it's thankfully pretty easy to fall back into that vibe at least, because the game is a feast for the eyes and ears, man, holy shit. The footage here is on a PS4 Pro, but it looks even nicer on a PC, obviously. Shadows, the occasional variety and pop in color, and even the dark caves and dungeons all look fantastic, and you can look at it all in a photo mode that the game includes, which is always a nice touch. And it all looks almost as good as Senua herself, who is portrayed wonderfully as this warrior woman with a lot of issues. Well, she comes off kind of meek at times, and doesn't speak much. It's all about the voices in her head, and it's worth saying that all the voice acting performances here are great. Couple that with a very minimalist but well-used score, you have just a really good package here. Now, I do want to acknowledge there's also a permadeath mechanic that has been getting some controversy. Early on, the game tells you that every time you die, this rot infection spreads up your arm, and if it reaches your character's head, it's game over and your progress is deleted. But without spoiling anything, this is and isn't the case. But I really don't think it's as big of a deal as other reviewers are making it out to be. It doesn't really make or break the experience since the game isn't that difficult anyway, even when you turn it up. The game is just designed to stress you out, and it does that in a good way. But really, I enjoyed my time with Hellblade quite a bit and will be replaying it to get the last collectible rune things. It's not the longest game, but everything you experience in the game is extremely high quality, save for, you know, some of those annoying puzzles and very, very light basic combat. But you get a scary, sad, and ultimately really moving story that you haven't really experienced before, and I think that's where the game's value really lies. But of course, guys, that's just me. You know how Before You Buy works. I gave you some pros, some cons, and some personal opinion, but now I definitely want to hear yours down in the comments. Since it's not that long of a game, some of you probably have cruised through it already, so I want to know what you're thinking of the game. Try not to spoil it for anyone else, but I want to know how you're feeling on it from beginning to end. And if you are someone that is concerned about the game's length, let me know why, but also let me know if you will pick it up if it drops more in price. You know, amount of time and gameplay and the price of a game is a topic for a whole other video, but we should touch on it down in the comments. I'll be down there talking to you guys as much as possible, but of course, as always, if you have anything else for me, hit me up on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Jake Baldino as well. I'm always over there. But you guys know the deal. Thanks so much for coming around. Before You Buys are my favorite videos to do here, but clicking the like button helps us out a ton, and subscribing if you're new is a good idea because we put out this stuff all the time. But as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.